Hey Gearheads, and welcome to GT Garage Talk, a discussion about all things automotive. I am your host, Corey, and this week we have an just awesome conversation with a true automotive enthusiast that I have known virtually for over a year. I know that's a very odd way to say it. I have known him in the virtual space for over a year, been following all that he does on the social medias for a while, have just gotten to know him in that way, in that space, seeing his career evolve. And through him, we have actually had another guest on our show. So those fans of Bill Taylor, the vehicle nanny, it is because of today's guest that we were actually connected all up. Funny how tightly knit and how wonderfully welded and melded together the automotive community is, and it's just been a blast. This journey called GT Garage Talk, the podcast, the YouTube channel, and everything in between, getting to meet and chat with some real, just genuine people that love cars and love what they do, and Grady Eager today is no exception to that. I got to know him, like I said, he had actually been doing a podcast. His podcast started about the time that this one did. I found him in the podcast space and then saw his profile on Vehicle Nanny and just got to know him as an automotive enthusiast and started following him on the social media, and here we are today. So without me blubbering on too much, let's bring Grady on and just get to know a little bit more about him, about his automotive history, and how he got into the automotive world and where he resides now. All right, so we are incredibly grateful to have Grady on with us this evening. Grady, how's it going?
Another day in paradise. How are you?
I think it's just a little bit better here in Texas than it is up there in 22-degree Michigan. So
yeah, I'm just glad it was sunny.
Yeah. So here I am. We're recording this day after Christmas. I'm in shorts and a short sleeve shirt, and I walked around the neighborhood in flip flops today. So.
Yeah, I haven't seen flip-flops in 6 months, so, it's the little things.
It's year-round attire down here. Let's just face it. You never know, because next week is supposed to be stupid cold and rainy all week, so
you get mean like 55.
Well, let me see. Let me pull out the app. I just remember my wife saying, as she was looking for a good time for us to go camping, she was like, yeah, it's just going to be so cold next week. Yeah, dips down into the 20s. So Sunday, low of 29, Monday, low of 27. So, yeah.
Awesome. So just another balming day in Michigan.
I'm out on all of that. We here famously last year had a snowmageddon. We're just not prepared for your kind of weather down here.
Yeah, you know what we call that?
Tuesday? Yeah, exactly. All right, Grady. So you and I have an interesting past in that this is actually the first time you and I have ever met formally, right. But you and I have been talking back and forth through the wonders of social media for a little over a year now.
Isn't that crazy?
Just the wonders of the internet when used properly and not out of anger. You and I were commenting before I hit the glowing red button over there that it's the wonders of social media and just learning how tightly knit the automotive community is, because Absolutely. You and I have a common connection, former guest of our show, 2 different episodes. Bill Taylor, the vehicle nanny, is kind of the common link between the two of us. And I can't remember, because I've slept just a smidge since then. I believe finding you led me to him, and he beat you on our show. So my apologies there.
Right. Hey, I'll take second place to that. But no, Bill's a great guy. I'm so glad that connection all kicked off, because I love talking to him. He's just a hardcore car guy like me.
Absolutely.
And a really, really cool past. So always a fun person to talk to.
So what brought you and I together, you started with one of your friends a podcast around the same time I started this podcast with one of my friends. And again, going to how closely knit and how kind of small the automotive industry is when you get down to it. I found y'all, listened to an episode here or there, and realized y'all were up in Michigan, and just kind of started following y'all on social media. And from there, met Bill, and the story kind of grows from there. How did you come across Bill Taylor, the vehicle nanny?
The vehicle nanny. So funny. It all kind of ties to what we'll probably be covering a little bit later. But my time with Hagerty, I had a story with them back in 2019, talking about young automotive enthusiasts for the next generation, and that was just an awesome story. Put in paper. I just loved that. And Bill, being a huge fan of Hagerty, followed the story, thought it was a really cool and interesting group of people that were out here doing this fun thing in automotive. And a year after that came out, he actually just messaged me on Facebook. He found me through Facebook, sent me a message, said, "Hey, I know I'm this total stranger. I love cars. I followed your story, and I find that what you guys do is so interesting." So he was like, "Why don't we do this little follow-up? Kind of what has it been like since the story?" And that's really where it kicked off. And now we probably talk on a weekly basis at this point, just chatting cars, talking industry, whatever that may be. And he's a really nice guy. A lot of fun.
His 2 episodes have been some of my favorites. I'll link those 2 down in the show notes if you're not familiar with either of those down below. But yeah, I love talking shop with him. He is, for those of you who have not heard the episodes yet, the last employee of the Saturn brand at General Motors. He turned the lights out and just all around ingrained in GM culture. But since his retirement, he's branching out a little bit. He just recently bought a new car, Subaru Outback.
Yeah.
So
yes, he had a Mini, and then he had a Subaru.
Oh my goodness, the things that happen when you leave the company. I mean, he's just going wild over there.
Right. He's told me some epic stories with Saturn. I mean, it was just awesome. Some of the things they did, the mock dealerships and the events that they had to put on for dealers, and all this really cool kind of nitty gritty behind the scenes stuff that just I'm addicted to learning that kind of stuff about it, because it's stuff that you just don't see. It's behind the curtain.
Yep. That's exactly it. I love finding out the behind the scenes stuff. And that's what this year forward on the podcast is going to be looking a little bit more towards, a little bit more behind the curtains of what's going on. I've got conversations started with many throughout the automotive industry, but we're going to have many, many interviews this year, of which you, sir, are the first. So welcome to 2022 with the GT Garage Talk podcast. And I'll start here with the article that really brought you into my spotlight, and that is an article on vehiclenanny.com, profiles of a young car enthusiast, Grady Eager, and just kind of giving a little bit of your background up until that point. So instead of me reading off of the vehicle history site, why don't you give the listening audience just a little bit about who you are, and maybe some of your car history up to this point?
Of course, absolutely. Well, once again, hello everybody. My name is Grady Eager, and as Corey mentioned, being on that story, there was many things that led up to it. Cars have, of course, like many of us, have been a part of our life. I mean, from a little kid, yes. I just had the Matchbox. I had all the little toys. I begged and pleaded my father to take me to the Detroit Auto Show, which was like 3 miles away from our house. And I just loved every minute of that. And as I got older, and really, a really big moment was when I turned 16. Yep. I had a car. It was a 2014 Scion TC, 6-speed manual, classic silver.
Hashtag save the manuals.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 6-speed manual. Loved that car. And that kicked off my real obsession with everything automotive. And yes, I can take it back to, when I first watched YouTube videos and this and that other thing. But really, when I got behind the wheel, I was driving everywhere where everywhere is possible at that point. I mean, they tell me, the curfew says, yes, you can't come back at, before 10, whatever. I'm like, I'm going out 11:45. I'm cruising down the road. I'm like, this is great, and really what led into that was a company called Baseline Rally, which was something started with my two best friends, Logan and Peter. And we created this event group that allowed us to implement so many fun opportunities for people to go and drive these really fun events to cool locations, destinations at basically no cost, little to no cost. And it was a great success. It was our great run. We were in high school. We were juniors in high school, and we kicked off this event. By the time we followed up, so we started it in the spring, and in the fall we had a rally with over 100 cars, I think, or 80 some cars, over 100 people, which was an absolute riot.
That's impressive.
And it was a lot of fun, and that's where we started to get more serious. We kind of looked around and said, like, man, the car world is kind of where we need to be. And after that point, after I graduated high school, I found myself in college at the University of Arizona out in Tucson, where I had to, kind of shift more towards the school world, but cars always kind of stayed with me. And kind of my next jump from that, I was a sophomore in college, and I started my YouTube channel. I love talking, of course, that's why we're here. I love just sharing my interest in cars with people. So I was, sophomore in college, which I'm telling you, please, nobody go find those videos and look at them, because, man, they're cringy. But I got my little GoPro and stuck it on the windshield of a car and did my first car review of one of my buddy's Golf GTI. And I had absolutely no idea what to do, how to talk, where to talk. I just said stuff.
We all got to start somewhere, man. Our first review was 32 minutes long on a Kia. So.
Oh, yeah. No, I was a blast. I mean, I didn't know anything about what to do. So that was super fun. That was kind of my next big thing, was the YouTube stuff, because I, at that point, started to meet people in the neighborhood, and they're like, man, I want you to review my car. I want you to review my car. Okay. And I got a bunch of killer fun reviews of my buddy's E60 M5 with the V10, had a Meisterschaft exhaust, so it sounded insane. GT350 had basically just come out. It came out 2018 or something. At this point it was 20. Yeah, car was brand new. Did the GTI MR2. I mean, it was just a blast. And then when I left Arizona and moved to Midland, I started this new career, and I decided at that point I was going to study automotive, really, in my school work. And that was a ton of fun. Learned about dealership operations, learned how car dealerships are run, which is really cool. A lot of information that I didn't know, and I've come to really appreciate. And kind of what kicked off, as I mentioned, this whole Hagerty story thing, was I got to meet a gentleman named Larry Webster, who is the editor-in-chief or senior vice president of content at Hagerty, because he's a real hardcore car guy. And I talked to him one day because of a friend thing. I got his phone number, I emailed him. Oh yeah, and his responded, and then we scheduled a phone call, and I told him at the very end of it, I said, oh, I make YouTube videos, like whatever, just as a joke, kind of funny, like, oh yeah, I talk cars, whatever it is. And that's kind of where everything changed. Was one day, about 2 months after that, I got a call from one of my now good friends and colleagues, Mr. David Zenley from Hagerty Media. And he said, hey, I want to do this story on you, this whole automotive enthusiast for the next generation thing. And that's that's kind of where my tipping point in cars was, because people started to notice, like, hey, if you're really passionate about something, you don't have to have the fanciest cars. You don't have to do the craziest stunts in the world. Like, if you just are really excited to be around cars every day, people appreciate that. And it just filled my heart with so much excitement. And that's kind of what has stepping stoned into where we're at today, was that story and all the great relationships that came out of it. Like we mentioned, Bill and the great team at Hagerty, to anyone in automotive that just can relate to that, right, that kind of enthusiasm. It has really kept me forward every single day on what I can do next to help be a part of this amazing industry. So. yeah, that's kind of my like brief into automotive, and it's been a real riot, a lot of fun.
Isn't it strange? They always say that getting a job is all in who you know, and it's extremely interesting that kind of offhand comment of, "Oh yeah, by the way, I also do YouTube videos." How that stepping stone led you to where you are, and
Absolutely.
I just find it incredibly interesting. And then going back to the whole networking aspect of the industry, you never know who you're going to bump into. So
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. Absolutely.
So, coming out of college,
Hmm.
studying cars, all that, what were you driving, and where did you land coming out of college?
Okay, so great question. So that Scion TC I told you about, that first car, everyone loves their first car. I actually had that car through college for a good chunk of college. So had the TC all through high school, about halfway, midway through college, and the car actually I got in, well, I didn't get in an accident. Someone hit the car that was parked,
Mm.
totaled it, basically. I mean, it was, I guess you could say from an insurance standpoint, not totaled, but like way too beyond what I felt comfortable doing fixing it. And so my father and I kind of were like looking at each other, we're like, well, what do you want to do? It's like, I don't, like, this doesn't make any sense. I've had the car at this point, put about 80,000 miles on it. I modified it, did coilovers and exhaust and intake and tune and all this random stuff, tires and blah, 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 blah. That was a really fun car. And so from that point, I went to a very brief ownership of an Audi A4. I had it for around a week. And on my way home, the wheel bearing went bad. And then 3 days later, the motor blew on the side of the highway. And that was done.
Yikes.
So then I bought the car that I had for most of my college, the last 2 years of college, which was my 2015 Passat diesel with a manual. That was the last year of that car. Enjoyed that immensely, especially when you're on a college budget. You're
Yeah.
trying to get around. It's just fantastic. Loved that car, just black and black. Fun cars. Actually, that was the car I learned how to drive manual on. My dad had one in 2014, but for the whole Dieselgate thing. And I drove that, put about 60,000 miles on that. And then I traded that for my current car, which is a 2021 Dodge Challenger RT Scat Pack wide body with a 6-speed manual. That's a really fun car. I actually drove it out. Took it out today, and just was having a blast. And I'd have to say the inspiration behind that car, if that was ever a question, was my good friend Joel, who lent me his SS1LE for a review that I did. It's actually now my most popular video
I
I've ever
remember
made.
that video.
And he lent that to me for the evening, and I just absolutely fell in love with V8. Yeah, I loved it. I did own some V8 cars. I had an Lexus, a 95 LS400, and a 1989 420 SEL Mercedes. Both, of course, V8 naturally aspirated, not designed to be performance oriented whatsoever.
No.
4-speed automatic, comically slow, but very smooth, I will say. But my friend let me review this Camaro, and I decided, you know what, like, let's just do it. Like, we graduated college, or we're graduating college at this point. Like, we're almost done. Got my job with the dealership. I'm like, let's just go for it. And I spec'd it all out the way I wanted. Took delivery of it June 5th. Right? Yeah, June 5th. And I have absolutely adored it every single mile.
Well, I'm quite jealous of that car for more reasons than one. First, I'm currently driving a little four-banger front wheel drive. Nothing exciting, but yours is, like you said, the 392 with the 6-speed manual. We got to sample a 392 wide body with an auto and truly loved that one. We had it at the track at Texas Motor Speedway and were blown away by that car. And we were also there with Hellcat Durango, Hellcat Charger wide body. But there was just something very special about that car. The gauges are very retro. The turn signal even is unique to that car. Mopar really got it right with
Absolutely.
that entire platform. And then you've got the pistol grip shifter, right?
I mean, it's a I mean, I don't know if it's it's not a pistol grip necessarily, but it's the way they set it up. It's kind of leaned over to the side. It's traditional, round shifter, but it kind of cocked over to the side, and it's a big long metal stick, and it shakes, and it's just hilarious. I mean, it's as old school as going to be, and I wouldn't have it any other way because I like the automatic. It is a ZF unit, works really really well. I've driven many of the Scat Packs and all those with that 8-speed. But I said, I am a manual guy through and through. The only two automatic cars that ever owned were vehicles that only could come in auto, which was the LS 400 and the Mercedes. My TC, my Audi, and my Passat were all manual. So I really, really like that. It's so engaging because I do not care about numbers. I don't care about specs. I care about what the car makes me, like how I feel when I drive it. And it makes me every day.
Yeah, that's the thing that's getting lost right now because everyone can, Google the specs, 0 to 60, quarter mile, and all that good stuff, and they think they're a genius on the vehicle without ever driving it. But I can tell you for a fact, I owned a 2012 Camaro SS with a 6-speed, and it had 426 horsepower. We drove very recently a 2021 LT1, so similar, but making 450 horsepower. So it had more power, smaller, lighter chassis, and it was less fun to drive because it had that 10-speed auto. It just completely changed the entire dynamic of the car. And while, sure, it's still 450 horsepower and a rear-wheel drive V8 rumble, it's just not the same. And like you said, you can kill yourself with specs. Dual clutch transmissions are always going to be faster, but they're never, ever going to be as much fun because there's just something about rowing through those gears.
Absolutely. It's addicting. It really is. I mean, I've driven some fast cars. I've driven some slow cars. I've owned slow cars. And
Passat diesel.
which I actually did end up tuning, so it was not slow, but it was originally very slow. It really did have 150 horsepower.
Yeah.
It didn't. So, but at the end of the day, it was a manual, so I could enjoy it every single second because I don't race cars. To everybody out there, like I don't go out and race stuff. I don't even. Today was like the first time I ever went out and had like a spirited drive, and it's not even really that. I just kind of don't put it in sixth gear. I just cruise, and I love right match downshifting, and I love just idling around. So manuals just provide that level of engagement that I just really enjoy. I mean,
plus you had the soundtrack of that 392, and
it is a riot. It sounds so good. I mean, I apologize to everybody that are my neighbors because that thing in the morning is abysmally loud. I mean, just ferocious. It's hilarious how loud it is in the morning at the cold start when it's 20 degrees out. Whew, I'm sorry, everybody.
It's part of the perks, but also, detriment to everyone else around you who may not find it as fun.
Right. I love it, but I understand if it's 8 in the morning, especially before I started working from home and I had to go to work at 8 a.m. People probably just hated me. Like, oh, that guy's leaving. Oh, dear.
Yeah, I think it's funny. So in what I do, I could be driving anything any given day, and when I can, I bring it by the house to show my wife and let her check it out, get her opinions on it. And generally speaking, if I can rev it when I get here, I do. And my neighbor across the street is also, we talk cars all the time. Taylor, shout out. He'll come over. But there was one morning I was in the Mercedes AMG GT63, and I came over, I started revving it up. He's a pilot, so he was sleeping in a little bit later, and he and I were chatting after I took the car back. He's like, yeah, I didn't know if he was trying to get my attention or what, but it definitely was not a bad way to wake up with that engine revving outside. And I was like, well, you're welcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, diving in a little bit, you mentioned working in a dealership. How long, where at, what was that like?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So I worked for the dealership I worked for, it's called Sarah Traverse City. I was an Audi Volkswagen dealer. They have many locations, but the one I was at was Audi VW. And I was there from basically the very beginning of May through the end of September. And I enjoyed a lot. I enjoyed it a lot because I learned what I was learning in school. And I mentioned that I was learning about automotive. I was learning how dealerships were run. So I got to the dealership and I go, wow, like they really are joking. Like, this is really what it is. I used the same software in class. I used the same, language and nomenclature and style. So that was really fun. But at the end of the day, I just found that, as much as I love sales, because I everything is sales, as my professor would say.
Yep.
I just looked at kind of where my next options were in automotive, and Hagerty was just always calling my name. And so it was the most business professional, just like on to the next great thing. But that experience was very fun because, when you're boots on the ground in sales every day, greeting customers, taking on test drives, going through all their information, figuring out their wants and needs, you can really take that and apply it to everything else that you do in life. How you talk to people, what you talk about, where you kind of direct, conversation, where you just want to go with conversation. And I really did enjoy it, and it's a great team. And I actually still go in, check in, say hi to them probably every few weeks at this point. And some really good people there. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great. Being in sales, you are the front line of the industry because you are the face of somebody getting a new vehicle. And I spent many years in sales. I know what it's like, boots on the ground, talking with people. I was selling less of a necessity item in swimming pools and hot tubs. So talking people out of their money for something they absolutely did not need. You had the unique experience of being in sales in the automotive industry during the most insane time for the automotive industry. Any nuggets from I don't want to blame it all on the Rona, but the chip shortage?
Yeah, no, I think there's a definitely, I don't want to try to speak on behalf of, everybody at a dealership, but I would like to say that it's, one of my great managers, Adam, he mentioned that, you create great habits in bad times and bad habits in great times. And, and this was a tricky time, but you learn that, take away that there are a lack of inventory or, complications for supply chain. I learned that people are just excited to buy a car, to be a part of an experience. And when you can provide that for them, whether they can buy the car today, tomorrow, or 2 weeks, 2 months from now, provide that experience from day one, and people really appreciate that. And they're not only going to want to come back to you, but come back to the business. Like, now that I've parted from the organization, there will be folks that I sold cars to that are really excited to come back and get their vehicle serviced or, look for their next car, whatever that may be. And, that's my biggest thing is I just love to provide an experience for people, whether that was being quick and efficient for folks that, that really demanded that sort of service, which is great. I'm happy to do that. Or folks that wanted to take the day and learn and watch and test drive and explore and be informed. And I love that I could cater that sort of experience person to person. And it brought me a lot of great memories and a lot of awesome customers, folks that just want to go in there and do a transaction. That's great. But if you want people to come in and really have, make it an event, I'm more than happy to do that for you. And it was a blast in that way. Definitely a lot to learn, but I did enjoy it a lot.
There is a small part of me that regrets never having experienced that side of the business because growing up, from before I could drive, in fact, I was telling my parents for my 16th birthday, just go with me to a dealership and talk them into letting me test drive. Like that was my idea of a fun weekend. Just go let me test drive cars, please. And as I got older, especially 18, 19, 20, 21, I would go to dealerships. You probably hated people like me just to see what the salespeople knew because I was researching the car every day that I could, finding out everything, finding out what option knocked what option off the list. I was on B&P all the time. And it was just kind of fun to pick with the salesman and figure out who really knew their stuff and who didn't.
Right. And I actually would say to you that that's exactly what I did. Uh, when I lived in Arizona, I would go to the local car dealership. It was called Auto Mall Drive. Great name. And it was a big, long stretch of dealers. I would park my car on one end and I'd walk all the way to the other side. And I'd walk in, I'd talk to every single person and just ask questions, stare at cars. Someone say, "Can I help you?" You're like, "Oh, no, I'm just looking." And then I'd go in and ask a couple of questions on the car, whatever it is. And I loved it. And I actually got an offer to work for them when I was in college in Arizona to just be like a porter or whatever it was. But I got to meet some really fun people there because that's what I enjoyed doing. I just wanted to touch and feel and see cars. So when people like yourself would come in, I was having a fantastic day because what really I dislike the most is the stall.
Right.
Is when you've done your follow-ups, you've done all your messaging, there's no leads coming in or limited leads coming in, especially right now. I love talking to people. I love getting people excited because who knows if they're going to come back and buy a car, but I got to have a great time with them talking. And I always enjoyed that. My managers always wished I sold more cars, but I had a ton of fun with it. I would highly recommend, and I actually would say this to anybody, is, if you love cars, go talk to somebody at a car dealership, because I bet you there are going to be a few that are car people. And I always joked around that I knew a lot about cars before, besides the salesperson. And I didn't understand that until I met somebody at a Kia dealer who didn't understand what whatever. I mentioned a performance part on a Kia, and he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And I'm like, "What do you mean you don't know?" I thought everyone that works at a car dealership is a car person. And he's like, I drive a Hyundai Accent with 230,000 miles on it. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, like that's fine. Like, let me just." So anybody, seriously, if you like cars, go to a car dealer, and if they turn you away, if there's not someone there that wants to talk cars with you, I understand if they're busy, totally get it. But my good friend Eric, who works still at Sarah, says that at the end of the day, he will always take the time to talk to somebody who's just wants to know more about cars or talk cars with someone. It's just what you like to do. It's fun.
Yep. Sounds like a great experience. Sounds like you had fun while you were there. We will pivot on to your next venture, which is your current venture at Hagerty. Why don't you
Yes. Yeah.
explain a little bit about where you are, what you're doing, how people can find you?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So Hagerty, kind of, as you said, kind of diverting a little bit. I reconnected with some of those people from the media team. We said, "Hey, like, I love what Hagerty does. I love what they're doing. I love their massive expansion. I want to be a part of the team." And they said, "Hey, this would be a great avenue towards what could be a great career in the Hagerty world." So that led me to what I do on I've got two jobs at this point. One being I am what's called an automotive enthusiast advisor, which is very fun sounding, and it is very fun because you get to just talk cars with strangers all day. And but I handle
Sign me
things
up.
like our called Hagerty Drivers Club, which is like our roadside assistance and a couple other little things, magazine, and I help customers kind of get through whatever their challenge may be. Hey, I got a piece of paper that I don't understand what this is, and I help break it down a little bit. But my really exciting side of what I do there is when I write articles for the Hagerty Insider. And if you're not familiar with Hagerty Insider, it's more of a deep dive into I always say it's kind of where all the the hardcore automotive nerds hang out. Is we talk about values of cars, transaction history, auction reports, and I do I've done two things. One was called the winning bid, and this new one, which has gotten to be a very fun gig, called the bid is right. I write articles about cars on Bring a Trailer or any auction website for that matter, but we just use Bring a Trailer because it's a nice source. And I go in depth talking about what makes this car unique. This particular one I just did was on a G63 6x6 Brabus, which was a lot of fun. Reading, talking more about that. We go over, obviously, like kind of like a car review on it to get people up to speed. And then we also relate that to the data that we gather as Hagerty for our Hagerty valuation and see what the transaction history is. And then we ask people to guess. And we guess, hey, what do you think this is going to sell for when the hammer drops? And now we are offering cash prizes, which is super fun. $500 to guess what you think the car is going to go for, and it's been really cool because we just get a huge amount of action and comments, and it's really entertaining. But that's kind of the two things I'm at right now. I've got the media side doing the articles, and then I handle sort of what they say the front lines are, where you're just grabbing customers calling in about their paperwork or if they need to get ID cards issued. And in the middle of all that, you get to just have conversations with car people. I'm not saying that's every conversation, but I probably have 5 to 7 a week where they're over 30 minutes of just people wanting to talk about their car. And it's a blast for me because I learn a lot. I genuinely learn a lot, and it's a lot of fun.
Man, I'm slightly jealous. For those unaware, I do a little writing on the side as well, but your gig sounds like something. Sign me up. That does sound like a fun adventure. So how can people find these articles that you're putting out?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple different ways. Hagerty, which I love everybody in that team. They share them so you can find the article on HagertyInsider.com. That's the first place you can look. You'll see you'll scroll down a little bit and you'll say like recent articles, and you'll see one of mine in there, or you can do a little search bar. And then also Hagerty shares it on their Instagram and their Facebook. And they do like that little pop down little shop thing. If you go on their homepage, you can see a quick link to it. And that's, I think, the three biggest places: Instagram, Facebook, and HagertyInsider.com. It's where you can find that. Once again, it's not some big glamorous, A-class production in that way. It is, it's car nerd at its finest, and I love it.
You mean you're not riding shotgun with Jason Camisa?
No, but I did get to meet him actually a couple of weeks ago, which was really fun. Totally crashed their little party. They were shooting a commercial with Wayne Carini and those guys in Traverse City, and I had absolutely no idea what was going on. So I just walked on set and said hi to Jason. So I was like, "Hey, I'm a huge fan," and this is like before I had joined Hagerty officially, and he's like, "Get up. Go." He didn't actually say it like that, but he's like, "Yeah, we're, shooting something right now." And I was like, "Oh dear, I'm so sorry."
Let me escort myself out. Thank you so much.
Like, you guys, I didn't notice all the big cameras because I'm a total dork sometimes, and I'm just not paying attention to anything else other than like I just want to say hi to somebody. But I try to reach out to those guys every once in a while just because I want to know more about what they do. I want to know more about their production. I've gotten to meet a couple of those people. Some of the really cool media guys that help make those really awesome videos that we have been seeing the last couple of months here. And
oh my gosh, their production quality is fantastic.
Insane. I got to meet the gentleman who is like the whatever you call a head production guy. His name's Matt, and he's awesome, super cool guy. He's from Hoonigan, he's from Ken Block world, and helped put together all the Gymkhana and everything. So he's really fun to talk to, hardcore car guy. So, and I love that. That's what this company really focuses on, and that's why I love it so much. Is for anyone that's not entirely familiar on it, Hagerty being an automotive lifestyle brand that not only touches on the insurance side of things, but the media production and all the different great things that they encompass. It really just gives such an awesome working experience day in, day out. You're just constantly consumed by car people, and I love that.
Well, allow me to officially say congratulations on landing a very awesome job at this stage in your life. It sounds like a blast and something I wouldn't mind doing even at my stage in life. So kudos to you on making those connections. And I'm sure a little bit of it is location for you. You are in basically the American automotive epicenter in that Michigan area. So
Right. Yeah,
definitely plays into it, I'm sure.
absolutely. I mean, I grew up in Southeast Michigan. That was my backyard. That was my playground. I mean, my parents live about 5-6 miles away from downtown. I mean, Woodward was a 15-20 minute drive. It was, everything for me is, you could do literally anything in automotive in that area. I mean, I spent my whole life driving past, Borg Warner and Chrysler, and going down to Dearborn and seeing the Ford, seeing all these like parts companies and all big automotive firms everywhere.
You have
And
no idea how jealous I am.
and then you get to meet the people, which is a blast. I mean, an absolute blast. And that's just what makes it so fun. It's just it really is cool to say to grow up in that area. Although my family isn't necessarily big into cars, they enjoy them. My dad actually has recently gotten into cars. I've convinced him a little bit. He got himself a 911 recently.
Nice.
I just came from not necessarily a car family, but I lived in an area where I could surround myself with cars, and it just built on itself every day.
Well, that leads very well into our closing segment, which we call random misfire questions. And
Okay.
it's 8 questions because every engine, as you are now finding out, should have 8 cylinders because let's face it, they're just V8s are better.
They're lovely. I will say it. Very lovely.
So these questions are totally meant for fun. They have no right or wrong answer. They're totally subjective, and they are meant for our audience and myself to get to know you just a little bit better. I've got a long list. The trouble for me will be narrowing it down to 8 to ask you, but I will start off with kind of a softball one that has many different ways you could go. What is your favorite car movie?
My favorite car movie. I genuinely loved Ford versus Ferrari. I mean, that movie was a riot because I'm a bit of an audiophile. I love listening to music. I love just getting immersed in the automotive, sound experience. And that movie, when you hear those cars in the very beginning, it ran, shivers down my spine. It was so cool. And I'd say Ford versus Ferrari. I don't say I watched it all the time, but man, when you're in it, you were in it, and it's a blast for sure.
Yeah, I regret I never got to see that one on the big screen, but I do have a couple of the OG Apple HomePods hooked up to my home entertainment system, and it makes for a good viewing experience.
Absolutely. And slight note on that, actually, here in Hagerty, there was a long time ago the vehicle that took, I want to say it was third place at Le Mans, the GT40 that actually won. The real car, not a replica, the real car that won or got third, whatever it was in the lobby. It was incredible. I mean, I just couldn't even believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is long before the movie even came out, but I just saw it and I was like, wow, that's incredible.
I've got a fun story on that note. When I was 13, 14, I wasn't driving yet. Chevy was doing a big media tour with some actual NASCAR vehicles that were going around from dealership to dealership. And I've never really been into NASCAR. I was 20 before I went to my first race. And let me just say, for all the NASCAR haters out there, go to a race first before you cast judgment. It's totally different experience than watching it on TV. But my first experience seeing an actual stock car, NASCAR, in person, I thought it was fake because it looked fake because they aren't made like normal cars. They're meant to be light and they serve one purpose. So I believe it was Dale Jr.'s car at the time, but just to have an opportunity to get up close and personal with an actual race car and naive 14, 13-year-old me, just like, what's this fake car doing here? So,
Right. I mean, they look just so unusual. And they'll have like a Camry badge on it or like a Chevy badge, and you're like, "Are you sure?" Because it's just a shape, just a random shape, for sure. No, it's. I think that to anybody, that is just so important. It's just to really get up close and personal with cars. Seek out those opportunities. I mean, something I'd mentioned, like I love about my car is how much it makes other people excited, because these were the cars that got me dreaming about where I'm at today. Like that's just what happens. I mean, I've had these awesome stories where people have lent me a car to drive, or I've sat in a car, or seen a car, and it just said, man, someday I want that, or I want to experience that. And I want to be able to share that with other people. So it really brings a smile to my face when you see folks trying to share that passion with others.
Yeah, that reminds me of a meme I saw just today on the Moparian Facebook page, which oddly enough relates back to you with your Mopar. It said, it was a question, why do you get so excited when kids notice your car? And the response was, because I was that kid once. And
Absolutely. I was that kid.
You started somewhere. So, next question.
Yes.
Think this might be a good one just from following you on social media for a year. Do you prefer 2 wheels or 4?
That is a fantastic question. Corey, that is a fantastic question. Man, I am car obsessed. I mean, I will drool over anything automotive, but if it were a situation where I was able to have a motorcycle, it truly is unlike anything else I've ever experienced. So although I will probably always have a fun car in my life and a motorcycle not as often, I think I prefer to go out and ride. I would prefer to go out and experience a motorcycle more than a car. Whether I can actually have one or not, that comes down to life situation. But man, oh man, I love motorcycles. First time I rode one, I mean, I was hooked. I was totally hooked.
So. I've heard that about the culture. I'm give me 4 wheels in an enclosed space for me. But
I will always, once again, always love cars and always cherish them and enjoy them, and probably have a lot of fun ones over the years. But man, I mean, it is just something you can't even put into words. Like the first time you get on a motorcycle and go accelerate, it's a hoot and a holler. It's such a blast. I mean, I understand it's very dangerous. We risk our lives every moment we get on one, but just to putt around. I'm not saying you need to go out there and be a professional. I don't need to see you at Isle of Man. It's just putting around the parking lot. Yeah. It's just a riot. So yeah, I think I would do 2 wheels if I had to choose.
All right. Here's one. CVT, continuously variable transmission, or EV?
EV. Which one do I like more?
Yeah.
EV, 100%.
Yeah, so you were actually in a position where you were selling them for a period of time, and
yeah, my mother bought one.
Really? Yeah. What'd she end up with?
ID4.
Okay.
Yeah.
One the brand new all-wheel drive. All right.
Yeah. They ordered it, and they're taking delivery of it in February.
Okay. Yeah, we've experienced a handful of EVs down here, and to your summation of the exhilaration, the feeling of a motorcycle, I would say a enthusiast leaning EV is very similar, because there's just, it's insane. The Tesla Model Y performance that I had for an afternoon made the Camaro feel like slow and pokey, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is
like weight. I mean, literally nuts. Yeah.
The instant smile that the instant torque puts on your face, it's like nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely. My friend had a Model 3 dual motor, and I took it. I drove it once. I loved it. I also did a review on a Mach E, which, call it controversial, I know, but I'm talking from a sense of how it drove. And in my review, I will stand by this. It does drive very well. Rear-wheel drive version. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed how it drove. I thought it was very nice. Because at the end of the day, as much as I'm an enthusiast, I love luxury cars as well. And nothing is really quieter than something that doesn't have any explosions under the hood.
Well said.
It's pure silence, and I appreciate that from time to time.
Yeah, I put 1,200 miles on one, and from a General Motors guy, I was blown away from the moment I stepped inside because it was unlike any other Ford product, and in a good way. Gone were the old school Ford ways of things. There was only one, quote unquote, Ford noise that it made, and that was when the hatch was opening and closing. But it was, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and if anyone is listening, I would have one, but there there are some obvious complications down here that don't exactly make EV the most practical for where we live in East Texas.
Absolutely. And I would touch on that briefly because it comes down to your situation. My wife, she loves loud cars, fast cars, and I love when she drives my car. She loves manual cars. She prefers manual cars. Her last car was a diesel Jetta with a stick, which was a blast. And you know what she said? Hey, like, wouldn't it be kind of fun to try like the EV thing if we had a house with a little, plug and charge it, whatever? Because it would just be nice. Like, obviously, it's not like, oh, we have to. It's just a different experience for us, and it's relaxing. It's very relaxing and peaceful, and just you can just drive. You can kind of forget like the experience of like getting the car, firing it up, going. It's like you can just kind of take off,
Yeah.
and that is nice. So.
And it's especially weird. I'm a V8 rear-wheel drive guy. It sounds like you have been converted as well. So the juxtaposition of those two types of vehicles is so vast, and yet I have love for both of them. They both serve their purpose.
At the end of the day, it's how it feels, how it drives. I I've driven great cars. I've driven bad cars, but I think every car provides a unique experience. And, whether it's a Kia Rio or a R35 GTR Nismo, they provide their own unique experience. My wife currently has a Tacoma. I love it. I think it's great to drive. It's fun, in that sense of just being upright, and it's jerky and bouncy, and it's just rough and tough, and it feels that way, and I like it in that way. Would I be like, yeah, it's the best car ever made in the whole wide world? No, but it serves a great purpose, and I think that folks that are into cars have to maybe look at that mindset a little bit before they go out and make a judgment call on what a vehicle stands for. I mean, people bash the Challenger forever because it's outdated and it's too old and clumsy, and I'm telling you right now, it is one of the cars I've ever driven. And I've owned a Lexus LS, a Mercedes S-Class. I know they're a little older, but they still serve that purpose. It's comfortable, it's quiet, it's, although besides the motor, but like the car, the vibrations are low, and it's, big comfy seats and heated steering wheel, heated seat. It's just like, it's still relaxing, and it does that very well. But then when you want to go nuts, you really just press a button that's just transmission, like you can change, you feel the sportiness of the throttle to the suspension, the steering, it comes alive. And I think that we live in a real golden age where we can enjoy good old school cars, and this new technology, this EV thing is kind of on its way. It doesn't have to. I saw a Bolt today, and I was like, I would never own that because I'm like, that's just, it's not very good looking. I don't think it really, I mean, sure, it's priced right, but I'm like, in my opinion, if you have the means to buy, a new car, especially, try to find one you really like, you connect with in some way. And if that is the Bolt, I'm not going to stop you. So this new age where these electric cars are starting to just look like a normal car, like Tesla kicked off at the Model S back in 2012.
Yeah.
It's just nice. It's nice.
Well, that kind of segues into question number 4. Tough one for you, I'm sure. Favorite go-to car? I'll just preface how wide-ranging this can be. For me, it's a 69 Camaro Z28.
Go-to car, like, I guess in the context of just like if you toss me the keys and I just go out for a day's cruise, I will always come back to this 911 GT3 with a stick. I think that is a unbelievable mashup of incredible performance, everyday usability, impeccable engineering, quality, speed, comfort, just nuts performance, and it sounds incredible. It ticks all the boxes of what a car needs to do, what you want it to do, and what it can do. And it's a fantastic car.
Yes. I was fortunate enough to sample a used Cayman and am starting to see what everybody fawns over the brand for.
Yeah, they're just incredible. I mean, my dad has an 05, and we got it in Houston, funny enough.
Oh.
But I love that thing. It's an incredible machine. You can absolutely hoon the nuts off of it. And it's a Carrera, too. It is not a full-blown race car. But you can go absolutely nuts and then put it in sixth. RPMs drop to like 2,000, and it's just comfortable. And you can drive it every single day. And sure, you can say, oh, there's soulless or, there are other options. But if it was like your one car to just take out and enjoy, I love them. I think they do a great job.
All right, we're going to do a few this or that's.
Okay.
Wrangler or Bronco?
Bronco.
All right. Any particular
version
or reason why? What's the leading factor?
It's the latest and greatest. I think that Jeep, I own a Mopar, everybody.
Yeah.
I get it. I think Jeep has been slacking with that. They've been taking their brand cachet. I mean, I understand they're worth billions of dollars now, but I think they really just didn't step it up enough. I think they upgraded exactly what we were looking for, but just didn't. They only took it to like 7/10. Yeah. And Ford looked at that and said, we're going to just wipe it. And I think they do. It's a fantastic looking car. It combines great attributes of new and old design. It's a lot more refined, which I just appreciate because these cars are not cheap. Nobody mentions that. They start at $30,000, $28,000,
especially around here. The Broncos are going for 88 and up. So
right. So you want, by the time you get one with a hard top and 4-door, you got to get the manual because that's a blast. I mean, they're not cheap, and it's like you want them to be every day because to some people, like that is your everyday car. And I think that Ford does a really good job with that. I'm super excited. I've actually considered getting one because I think they're just really cool. You do see them up here quite a bit now because they're starting to get a little bit more available. But definitely, yeah, Bronco for sure.
All right. Yeah, I think we are at the golden age of Wrangler evolution now that we have a little bit of competition spurring them on. So very interested to see where this competition rivalry goes.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. In your vehicles, do you prefer more tech or less tech?
Less. Yeah, when I got the Challenger, I actually requested to not have a bunch of tech stuff. No blind spot monitoring, no adaptive cruise control. I deleted the sunroof. I know it's not tech, it's complications, I say. I'm like, I just did a nicer radio because I like music and, the red brakes. I don't need crazy, I think, and this is someone I just said, I like the electric cars, but I like it because of the powertrain. I don't, not like a blown away by that you can play video games on your tablet in the middle of your screen. I prefer more of a driver. My friend had a 91 Miata, British Racing Green, tan interior, and I love that because he's like, man, it's got an optional radio. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Putting Mopar up against Ford yet again, TRX or Raptor?
Oh, T-Rex for sure. I mean, yeah, I am not a huge fan of this generation Raptor. I think they dropped the ball a little bit because the previous generation one looked fantastic. One of the coolest looking trucks. I see them everywhere up. I mean, they're everywhere up here, which is awesome. I love that. I love the Raptor previous version, new version. I think the interior, sure, they got it right, with the exterior, which is what we all see. They just didn't nail it. So I'll take the TRX for sure, and it's an incredible powertrain.
Oh my goodness, yes. Talk about a giggle pedal with the right foot.
Yep, there's three of them in our neighborhood and whatever around here, and every time I pull up next to one, that guy just launches it from the stoplight and just sounds unbelievable.
Yeah, I have sampled 2 or 3 now, and constantly want more. So yes. All right, last one, perhaps the most important question: do you name your vehicles?
I do not actually.
Oh, Grady.
And I love cars, and I'm obsessed with them. They're like my little kid. I found my first door ding in the Challenger today, so I was a little sad by that. But I do not. I simply call the car the model. The whatever. The TC, the Passat. I don't name my cars. I don't name anything that I own.
I'll let you. I'll let you slide on that one. If there was a wrong answer to anyone, you just gave it. So there you go.
That's okay. It just doesn't necessarily, it doesn't change like what I feel in the car.
Right.
I don't drive it. I just say like the soul of the car lies with its heart, with its engine. And that's my connection, is when I got a car, sure, I appreciate I love how my Challenger looks, but to me, it's how it sounds and how, that's like what really talks to me more. And that's why I just never got into that. I've thought about it, but just could never do it.
Yeah. Well, Grady, thank you so much for coming on, for chatting, catching me up, and really just getting to know you this evening. Followed each other for a year now, and actually getting to spend a little FaceTime with one another and do what we both love doing, and that's just talking cars.
Talking cars, talking industry. I love it. I think that's my favorite part about it, and it was a real pleasure. I do miss just sitting down having car conversations outside of work, and which, I mean, I guess is, can't complain too much. But I really do appreciate you having me on the show, and I look forward to what GT Garage Talk can do in the world of podcasting. So,
well, we will keep you on the rotation of guests for sure. So looking forward to catching up with you yet again some other time. If you don't mind, for our Patreon members, we do 2 bonus questions that go behind the paywall.
All right. Let's hear it. Once again, thank you so much for the opportunity. And thank you all if you've gotten this far in the podcast. I hope you all have a great rest of your evening and happy holidays. All the best to you.
All right. Thank you, Grady. You enjoy your evening.
You too. Cheers.
I cannot thank Grady enough for coming on. It's a long time coming. I joked in the episode that it's because of my connection finding him that I found the vehicle nanny, Bill Taylor. And I've already had Bill on twice, and this is the first time getting around to actually having Grady on. But I feel it was a very appropriate time to bring Grady on. His automotive career has changed and blossomed since I have gotten to know him. So just being able to see from this side back on everything that I've watched him go through has been fun, and to see how one thing led to another and how he has ended up at what is becoming like the juggernaut of the automotive media industry in Hagerty. So it just really was cool to catch up with him, to meet him personally for the first time and get to hear his story. We kind of referenced it just a little bit in the episode, but he got married just a few weeks ago. So congratulations, Grady, on the nuptials. And just truly hope you're enjoying life as it sounds like you are. So thank you again so much for coming on. We are incredibly grateful for you spending your evening with us and you, the listening audience. We're glad that you came and joined with us. It is a new year for GT Garage Talk, and we thank you for riding along with us. As with everything, you can find us on social media. We are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, we are on Twitter, everything at GT Garage Talk, and everything we do, including our YouTube channel and links to that, can be found at gtgaragetalk.com. Until next time, bye.